Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's wonderful to see everyone here. Welcome to the Community College STEM Network webinar. My name is Michelle Vanoy, and I'm Director at the Education and Employment Research Center here at Rutgers, and I'm a PI on the CCSN. Just to give you a background, the CCSN works to connect and support researchers and practitioners conducting and translating research on how students navigate STEM pathways, looking at evidence-based practices, programs, and policies. This is part of our ongoing webinar series, but the network also has research projects and partnerships that are focused on understanding how low-income academically talented students navigate STEM pathways through STEM programs. So just a note of housekeeping, we're recording this webinar and it'll be shared with everyone to watch later. Generally, we ask people to keep their cameras off during the presentation part of the webinar, but we encourage everyone to ask questions and provide comments throughout the chat, and we'll answer them throughout. We'll hopefully also have some time for Q&A. So I will not go on much further, but I just wanted to welcome our presenters today, and very much grateful for what they're going to share. So Will Tyson will be taking over here. He's the co-PI on the CCSN, professor at USF, and is going to be sharing with us some really interesting findings from the grantee survey that we did, looking at STEM grantees and different elements of their programs. And we're also very grateful to have some folks from colleges from STEM grantees who have been engaged deeply with us at the CCSN, Jan Edwards from the College of Lake County, and Gabriel Mast from Skagit Valley Community College. So we are really grateful for all the insights that everyone's about to share. And I'm going to hand things over to Will to take us off and share with us some of the really interesting findings from the grantee survey.
All right, fantastic. So let me do the sharing real quick. Hmm, not letting me. Sorry. Oh, should be fine. Can you all see it? Can you all see the slides?
Yep, the slides are visible. We can see two at a time,
Oh,
the current one and the next one, just so you know.
oh, okay. Because it's giving you full. All right,
Yeah, we can see presenter view. There
There
you go.
you go.
there we go. All right. Okay, so this is the long title of this of this paper that is submitted to the American Society for Engineering Education meetings that will be taking place in Charlotte next week. So you all are getting a early preview of this work. It's also been put together as a brief that is or will be available on our website. So this is NSF STEM principal investigators on the effectiveness of advising academic support and other program elements toward promoting STEM pathways for two-year college students and transfers. This work comes out, well, first some background. Community colleges are a key part of the STEM program. Um, STEM serves low-income, underrepresented students. A lot of community college students are first generation. These students face a lot of the kind of typical barriers that we associate with college and universities in general, but especially community college population, finances, having the time to invest in education, and then challenge and advising and transfer. A lot of the work that we've done through CCSN has looked at a lot of these different factors, particularly the financial piece. One of the key things with STEM is that the programmatic supports within the STEM program, they're locally designed. So each project is basically doing their own thing. There's nothing that is uniformly mandated by NSF. There are not specific program elements that programs have to do. And along with that, NSF requires that students are not required to participate in these program elements. So that, along with another key element that I think probably a lot of people who aren't within the STEM community may not know, is that 60% of the budget has to be devoted towards scholarships, meaning that there's not much of the budget that can specifically be devoted towards these programmatic supports. So whereas a lot of other NSF programs, the supports are what are primarily what the resources are for. That's not the case with STEM. So, so the core of the STEM program is that students can maybe awarded up to $15,000, which is up from $10,000 based on unmet financial need. Um, and so that's the core part of the project. What we're looking at is the variance in the projects in terms of what programs are offered. Mentoring provides academic guidance, socialization into disciplinary norms, timely problem solving, both through faculty mentoring and peer mentoring. Cohort strategies are common in order to foster peer networks, strengthen a sense of belonging, and normalize help seeking. And we've published quite a bit within CCSN on the effectiveness of the cohort model. Some of you may have been at the Research to Practice clinic that I did back in April, looking at the effectiveness of cohort models. Academic support that includes tutoring, skills workshops, early alerts, some aspects of the cohort model, first year STEM seminars. These types of supports are designed to address coursework demands directly. Career preparation primarily looks at exposure and exploration. That includes like research opportunities, speaker series, field trips, site visits, networking, and internships and job placement supports are usually implemented where institutional and employer partnerships permit and kind of work at that intersection of education and work. And then transfer support is key for community college students to clarify the requirements and reduce friction at the kind of 2 to 4 year interface. So that's a key issue here. But despite the prominence of these strategies in these STEM narratives, we don't have limited comparative evidence about which program elements are most widely implemented, which ones reach students most consistently, and which ones are most effective towards our key outcomes like GPA, persistence, transfer, and job placement. So this study comes out of a survey that was conducted with principal investigators, co-PIs, and staff from STEM grants that were awarded between 2018 and 23 that involve community college students. The purpose of this is to understand all these factors here, and the factors of the support that helps community college students complete their education and launch their STEM careers. Um, Without going into too much detail, we basically put together a list of STEM grants by hand. Basically, I went through every STEM grant that was awarded through a longer period than that. It was actually from like 2015 to 2023. And went through, classified all of them, went through and discovered which of the grants involve community colleges in 4 different ways. The ones that were led by community colleges, the ones that were collaborative grants with community colleges, meaning there was a grant specifically awarded to a community college and a 4-year partner. 4-year led grants that had named community college partners. This is where a university lead institution said, "Oh, we'll be working with East-West Community College and North-South Community College. And then there are four-year lead grants with unnamed community college partners. These are the ones that they said we're going to work with some community colleges. Um, so in total, we had 102 responses from 96 different projects. Where there was a multiple responses from the same project, we use the PI as the representative of that project. So that's this right here. So we looked at program elements based on five different domains: advising, academic support, career, social support, and transfer. These domains were derived from prior work that we did through CCSN, through the systematic literature review of looking at research put out by STEM projects. Um, Elizabeth Mesa and Maria Spino put together, and the team of research assistants who work with them put together a list of common program elements and a heat map that was used to say which ones were most common. We looked at the main outcomes were GPA, persistence, transfer, and jobs. This is not specifically looking at the student outcomes or even student perceptions of program effectiveness toward these outcomes, but it was what the PIs thought were the what they listed as the most prevalent program elements, the ones that were used most commonly by students, and then the program elements that were most effective towards GPA, persistence, transfer, and jobs. So I have a much longer list, a chart with like all the programs and how prevalent they were. And if you're really interested in that, I can show it to you, but it's a lot and you probably don't want to see it. But this is the basic breakdown of the most prevalent program elements. Advising was most common, and the most prevalent among that was faculty mentoring. The social support was next most common. That would be cohort meetings. Then you had transfer, like pre-transfer advising was most common among those. Academic support, tutoring was most common. And then like career support, career services, that sort of thing. Research and field trips are most common among them. So the rest of the presentation, I will be going into kind of each element, and I'll be showing you the 10 most used or 10 most effective program elements among for that category. So the survey asked respondents to choose the elements that were used most frequently or less frequently by students among the program elements that they reported using. So this chart is the ones that they said they used, and then these are the most frequently used program elements among the ones that they said that they had. Um, so they said that students most likely used, and then the way that it's put in the paper, it's a most minus less, meaning like which ones were reportedly used more minus how many respondents said they used it less. Um, So advising elements were quite common. Faculty mentoring was the most common. Among those, advising and transfer workshops were relatively common as well. In terms of career preparation, um, project leaders indicate that students most commonly use like internship opportunities, research opportunities, social support elements that were common include the regular cohort meetings at 57%. Civic engagement clubs were common as well. Academic support, this is the first year seminars and STEM success courses at 58%. Then transfer elements that were common include like pre-transfer advising, um, pathway alignment with universities, so working specifically, coordination between the colleges and the universities was common as well. So Respondents reported that certain program elements consistently engage participants more than others. Mentoring, particularly faculty and professional mentoring, along with internships, networking events, tutoring, cohort meetings, pre-transfer advising, were the most frequently used support among students. Oops. With respect to yeah, improving student performance. Faculty mentoring scored high here. This is where I point out that, of course, this is faculty who are reporting how effective that they think these elements were. So I'm saying that because I always want to, present the limitations of the work. So while I do believe faculty are quite effective, this is from the faculty perspective saying that they are effective in improving student performance. Um, Another element that was common was intrusive or enhanced advising. If you were at the research and practice clinic that I did, we talked a little bit about the effectiveness of intrusive advising and kind of advising in which the advisors are proactive in getting the students to be advised, and removing some of the burden on students to ask for help. In terms of career preparation, the research opportunities and internship opportunities were rated most effective among the career preparation piece. Just kind of anecdotally, in the case study research that me and my team conducted here at University of South Florida with community college transfers, that was one of the most, the internships were one of the big draws in the STEM program. Some of the students said, once I saw there was an internship, I knew I wanted to sign up. Some students even said that they didn't even see the scholarship money, the internship possibilities were the big draw. Social support elements rated, they varied considerably in terms of their perceived effectiveness. The regular cohort meetings, competitions, conferences were rated highly in terms of improving student academic performance. Another fun anecdote, I remember talking to some of the students who had attended the STEM Scholars meeting. That was like their first conference, and it really showed them that they were valued within the STEM community, and definitely helped propel them. They said it helped kind of help them believe in their own academic ability. And then tutoring cohort classes and the first year seminars were rated highly in terms of academic support. And with transferring, the post-transfer advising was the most highly rated transfer support mechanism. Then in terms of persistence toward degree, again, faculty mentoring stays high on this list. Um, yeah. Faculty mentoring is high on the list, intrusive advising, having a dedicated student success coach was rated quite highly there. You see it 56%. Um, in terms of career preparation, research opportunities, internship opportunities were quite popular. PIs also named field trips as a major benefit in terms of career preparation as well. The social support elements, again, the regular cohort meetings, clubs, and conferences were rated highly. Um, some of the ones that were not rated as highly include like civic engagement and competitions here with respect towards degree. Um, then academic support, academic skills workshops, and tutoring were among the most popular. And well as cohort classes as well. And then with respect to transfer, pre and post transfer advising were rated highly. Post transfer was a little mixed. There was also one of the less highly rated ones as well. So it shows kind of a mixed bag there from the perspective of the PIs. Then improving transfer to a four-year university. Again, faculty mentoring is high in terms of advising. And yeah, the intrusive advising, individualized education plan rates highly. There you see at 49%. In terms of career preparation, research opportunities, field trips, and professional mentoring. So, kind of mentoring from the community were rated relatively highly compared to others. In terms of social support, the regular cohort meetings again were rated effective, as well as competitions and conferences. In terms of academic support, it was cohort classes, first year seminars were rated effective. And in terms of transfer, the pre-transfer advising and the formal collaborations between colleges and universities were rated most effective. Um, Among across the categories, the strongest transfer-related effectiveness signals emerged from the advising and structured pathway supports. Um, the pre-transfer and pathways alignment were the most frequently highly rated. But by contrast, the career preparation and social support activities had limited effect on transfer. So for transfer, it's the elements that provided clear guidance for students, structured the plan for students, and coordinated cross-institutional navigation. Then lastly, in terms of improving job placement, internship opportunities were the most highly rated. Job supports as well here. Um, from advising, it was an individualized education and career plan, dedicated student success coach, specialist, coordinator, rated relatively highly. Other career preparation include the research opportunities. The ones that were rated less effective were like a speaker series and job shadowing. Again, not to say that these were not effective, but they were rated less effective among the career preparation options by the PIs. And then in terms of social support, conferences, competition, service learning rated highly. And you can see there that those are the ones that are more geared towards toward networking, and toward professional networking and giving students opportunities to get a sense of what it would be like to be on the job. In terms of academic support, the most highly rated included cohort classes, first year seminars, and like soft skills workshops. So communication, growth mindset, so forth and so on. Um, I wrote a book on that a few years ago, looking at how soft skills are taught in high school, career and tech ed courses. And then the transfer support elements that were perceived effective for improving for job placement include the post-transfer advising, the um, formal university and college, community college STEM collaborations. And so basically the job placement effectiveness is most consistently associated with career-related experiential activities, internships, research experience, networking opportunities. Those regularly appear among the highest rated practices for improving employment outcomes. All right. So that's about 20 minutes. And any questions you all have, I'd be happy to answer this. It's a lot of information, but um, yeah, I think this is a good way to distill kind of how, you know, STEM project leadership um, feels like they're doing in terms of reaching students. All right,
I have a question, Will.
go for it.
You want us to just maybe should people raise their hands if they have a question, or I just jumped in, but I don't know how you want to manage that. I just wondered if you could see, you mentioned kind of the different types of PIs that might be involved here. Was there anything that jumped out at you as like um, PIs in particular types of institutions or sectors had like different viewpoints or said different things than PIs and others, or was it kind of too hard to distinguish that?
Well, I didn't do a specific breakdown in terms of which types of institutions. That's kind of a next step, but it's one of those things that like, oh, this paper's already long as is. So if we want to do a follow-up, that may be a good way to get into it in a little bit more depth. Um, to do that specific breakdown and to see if there was a difference in terms of the program elements that were reported to be used by different PIs. So, obviously PIs at community college versus the PIs at 4 years in terms of what they report.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to see like if community college PIs, for example, had more emphasis on advising or community building versus like, I mean, this is just like maybe a theory, maybe, or, and maybe the 4-year PIs had more of a emphasis on, academic support or something like that. I have no idea, but I'm just wondering that would be interesting to see if there were kind of differences in the types of support offered depending on um, where where colleges, what supports they feel like their students most need.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the main takeaway from this is really showing the breadth of what programs offer. Because again, this is 79 different programs, and just you can see in those charts, there's kind of a wide variance in terms of just what they offer. There's some elements like faculty mentoring that are just very common, but then some of them, which I'll pull up that big chart, but like yeah, like faculty mentoring, 82% of the grants said that they used faculty mentoring. But like again, these are 79 different projects. There were only there were only 12 out of around about 40 of the program elements that were used by a majority of the projects. So again, it's just a very wide variance there. And so I think one big takeaway, if you're if you're leading an STEM project at a community college, what you're doing may be very different than what another college is doing. So like research opportunities were only offered at 2/3 of these programs. Um, academic skills workshops, 39%. The majority didn't have any type of first year seminar course. Um, something like summer bridge program, only 18% of those were offered. So what you're doing at your college is probably pretty unique. And if there's successes that you can brag about, it's very helpful to showcase that to the rest of the community because my impression just from the projects that the project that I'm on, the STEM project that I'm on, and other STEM projects that I have talked with people about, everyone's kind of just figuring this out based on the resources that they have at their institution and which is what they think will work. So putting some evidence out there about at least what other PIs think is working is a step in the right direction. But obviously, we can do more within the STEM community.
Well, I was going to ask you one other question, and then we maybe can have our reactors, our community college folks comment on what we've heard. But I just wanted to ask you about sort of if you have been able to look at the data to see if there's any like common combinations of across the different activities that, you tend to see these, like colleges do these things and these things, like whether they're sort of clusters of activities, because it always seems like it's the sum of all of the parts that we want to kind of look at here. And so I don't know if you've been able to look at that in the analysis, just occurred to
Um,
me.
I haven't specifically looked at that, but the main reason why is I haven't really come up with a good way to conceptualize it and
Yeah.
represent it. Because again, it's around 40 different program
Yeah.
elements, and so
A lot. Yeah.
figuring out how to like map that in a way that shows how distinct all 79 are is a little difficult. Um, maybe, there's some ways to have thought about possibly doing it because really the visualization piece for this was a little challenging. Um, and I decided to keep it as simple as possible with these charts, but I don't start thinking as simple as possible. I start thinking really complicated and then say, "Ooh, that's dumb. I cannot do that." Um, but if I figure out the right way to do it, I can definitely try to represent that. Because again, that is one of the big takeaways that there's no one way to do this.
No,
Yeah.
that's super
And I
interesting.
and I would really suspect that there's no two grants that have the exact same approach. Um, I guess one way to potentially do it would be do it by do it by domain and then look at the kind of intensity of the domain and see how they compare. But I'll have to take another crack at that and see if
Oh,
that would work. Yeah.
it'll be a topic for a future webinar discussion. I mean, it's an interesting analysis. Well,
Yeah.
I want to make sure we have time for
Yes,
Jen and
please.
Gabriel to speak. So, I don't know who wants to take us away. Jen, you wanna go?
Sure, I'll jump in. Just to kind of set the stage a little bit. Our grant actually fell right within that window that Will was talking about. So I'm pretty sure I completed the survey as a community college-led initiative. We are just serving our own students. We don't have a specific partnership with any university. Our theme was building an academic community. So as you can imagine, a lot of our support services were focused on that idea. Um, some of the things that we do, I think one of the big things that we've been doing, and this was I think our third STEM grant, so we had some prior knowledge of what had worked and what hadn't worked for us, was what we refer to as our study hall. And that kind of, rather than having formal cohort meetings throughout the semester, twice a week, we have kind of an open forum, 3 hours, 2 different days, where students can stop by one of 2 different rooms on our campus, one of which is our makerspace, and we have faculty there. So the programs that we support are engineering and computer science. So we're pulling in engineering, computer science, physics, math, chemistry faculty to hang out in those spaces. So it kind of serves dual purpose, and that they get a lot of informal conversations with faculty for that advising, that mentoring, but also more formally if they have any specific homework questions, right? That tutoring happens there. And so that's a big part of how we build both our social and our academic network kind of at the same time. One of the things that's probably a little bit unique is we do a rolling cohort. I do not have restrictions that it has to be, your first or second semester or first time in college. We kind of take students in along the way. For us, it's college algebra. It's a GPA of 2.5. Those are kind of our getting started benchmarks. And being a community college, as many of us know, they don't all start in the same place. So I can have a student who's been there a year and is in pre-calc, and I can have a student who's been there a semester and is in Calc 3 because they took AP. And so doing common courses from a cohort for us really doesn't work as well as letting them gather in this space. And then a lot of that informal peer mentoring also happens as they talk about different courses or who their favorite teacher was, or where they are thinking about transferring to and who just toured this different university. And that's probably the other thing that's a little unique for us. I'm between Chicago and Milwaukee, which means there are about 10 universities within an hour and a half, 2 hours that my students can pick from. And so advising is a bit of a monster. There's a lot of opportunities and a lot of different requirements depending on those different things. So transfer advising is also really core to our program. So I'm going to kind of leave it at that and let Gabe jump in.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Jen. Interestingly, a lot of overlap there between what Jen just described and our program. So I wrote down two kind of interesting ideas to talk about in response to what Will was talking about. One was around leveraging. So looking at other efforts on your campus is usually going to talk about that. And the other is kind of the interaction between those 5 elements that Will put up in the beginning. So I think it was advising, social transfer, academic, and career. And we have all those elements in our program as well. So first, let me just say for our program, we call it the Cardinal STEM Scholars Program. So we actually, when we sat down and thought about this, we kind of envisioned, the NSF fellowship that we all wanted in grad school as PhD students. So we kind of thought about that fellowship, and we really built our program around that idea, right? So having a faculty mentor like that and really building it as that experience. And I think that's been really helpful for us. For our students, I was just going through our annual evaluations. Our students do echo what Will said, our faculty PIs say. So they do call out their faculty mentor as the single biggest, most important aspect of the program. I think, one thing for us, if I think about leveraging, there were a lot of efforts going on at the college. I think we got ours in 2019, our STEM, and just finishing up. And so we were doing a pathways work, and we were doing some required elements at the college that weren't allowed to be required in the application, right? So I think we all know the literature behind, a cohort model and how strong the effects of those are, but we're not allowed to require students to do that. However, at Skagit, students are required to take a first quarter experience. It's part of our degree requirement. So we kind of co-opted that and made a specific first quarter experience success class for our STEM students. So we could require them to take that. So again, kind of leveraging those efforts that are going on at your institution to kind of get a bigger bang for your effort. Then I think the other thing I was thinking about is kind of the interaction between those different areas. So Jan talked about, we really saw kind of the strength and the weakness of our advising model. So our faculty in their contract are advisors. It's part of their job description to be advisors for students, although we do have non-faculty advisors as well. And so Washington technically has a strong kind of transfer program across the state. But we really found out as we kind of dug in with those faculty mentors, kind of what some of the weaknesses were with that approach. And so the faculty sitting down with the students and working with them on their specific transfer requirements to different universities was really helpful for us to kind of build out a more accurate, balanced, meaningful transfer program for our students. So I think that was an interesting interaction between some of those elements. And then the last thing I'll just throw out there for us is, we tried to build in the supports as much as possible. So we started out doing a lot of kind of, student research, kind of individualized student research projects, undergraduate research, so that our students weren't behind when they transferred on that experience. And we really ended up building in a course-based undergraduate research experience to our key courses so that all of our students kind of got it by default going through. And that was actually really helpful as well. So I'll stop there and see if, Will or Jan have anything to add, or if there are any questions.
I'm going to kind of leverage where Gabe left off on anything you can do to extend it to all students has definitely, I think, been one of the strengths of our program. So many of our students have those barriers besides financial and making time outside of class to attend things. that they can't immediately see the value in and helping them get through that semester or the next thing on their checklist has been a hard sell for us. But
Yeah.
if we can integrate it in
Yeah.
some way, and even in our intro to engineering course, which kind of serves as our foundational course of both successful student skills and trying to translate what's your specific engineering major kind of combined, by building in a lot of that community building, that academic networking to all the students, but it also benefits our NSF students, has really been the most successful approach where it's part of their package.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was thinking a little bit more about what I think Danielle had posted in the chat. So for community college students who transfer, that sense of community and that kind of imposter syndrome is really important. So the second biggest effect that our students, not our faculty, but our students rated after faculty mentors was that sense of community, the sense of community they developed at our college. And then interestingly, when they transferred, after our first couple years, they would be able to find at least one or two students who'd gone through the STEM program before them, the STEM program before them, so they could get like someone to talk to and that was really we hear from that all the time about how important that was to kind of have that kind of bridge connection to then help integrate into that next level at the university. So I just think that, a lot of what Danielle was posting was really resonating with me as well from our work.
I think as Gabe talks, I realize how parallel our programs are, because we've done some of the similar things. And I think that was the one good thing, right, that came out of COVID is we normalized the use of Zoom for
Yeah.
guest speakers. And so in our intro course, we pull in people who have just transferred in the last semester or two to be a panel to talk to our students about how that process went. And then all of our early career engineers that speak with our students are typically either our STEM students or folks who have had an on-campus internship in our makerspace, because they have that rapport with us and they'll come and speak about what that process was like to transition from university to career. And so
Yeah.
they're getting students that look a whole lot more like them, which I think
Yeah.
is always a challenge. When I start getting retired engineers, they don't always look like the folks in my classroom.
Yeah. Yeah. Similar. We have similar experiences. Um, the other thing I was going to throw out, I'd be interested to hear from Will. I think as an educational researcher, I'm also super interested to see which of these individual elements, which ones are actually leading to which is very difficult to tease apart. But I think you get a sense, which I know isn't, you can't write a paper on this, but you get a sense when you do this that the strength of this program is really not the money. Like the funding is important, necessary, but not sufficient, right? You would not see. So for our program, our students, again, it's not causal, but our students are graduating and transferring at about double the rates that similar low income students in STEM are doing. And they're graduating and transfer at about 4 times the national rate. So if you think about a national rate of, right, it's about 32% that transfer and about 16% who finish their bachelor's degree in 6 years. So that's the general. Our students are doing about 4 times that and about twice students who aren't in. So I think that's another interesting thing to look at here is the kind of combination of the program with the money. And for us, at least, I'd be interested to hear other community college folks. We really had to work super hard in our institution to get this to be more, our institution wanted to make this another scholarship, and we had to really work to make sure that it wasn't another scholar, right? To say that this is a program, a fellowship. And that was an interesting, for me, journey at a community college because I've seen that at universities and at liberal arts colleges, but it was quite a difficult to establish that at a community college. And now I think it's up and running, but that was really another interesting thing to think about. So
Yeah, I'll respond to that real quick. I think that's the exact right approach. Because if it's just a scholarship, then you're just giving people money. And then there's not the expectation that they're going to participate in all of these other things that you're doing to support their academic progress, and transfer, job placement, all these other outcomes that we're talking about. And it is the intersection of these, right? And so one thing that really came across in the case study research was that students did not necessarily just use the scholarship as a scholarship. They used it to specifically facilitate participating in all the other supports. So, for example, Jane, you were talking about the difficulty of getting them to come back on their on off days, come to campus to, be in these supports, et cetera, et cetera. Part of the culture around the program here at USF is that these students, it's all community college transfers in this program, that they're getting paid to participate in this. Like this is like to treat it like a job, treat it like your first engineering job, that you're getting paid to participate in these things. And so like the cohort model, um, they have bi-weekly sessions on Fridays. So they know that they are supposed to come in on Friday to do professional development, peer networking, free lunch, that sort of thing. And then the off Fridays, the other Fridays, they know that they're going to come in to meet with their academic advisors, to do study groups, so forth and so on. So right there, you have a few different things going on. Friday is now a day to do all these additional things. So they know not to schedule work hours on Friday, not to go to the beach on Friday, to like reserve Friday as part of their kind of broader academic support, something that's going to help facilitate what they're trying to do and help them get to their goals of graduating and getting a job, a full-time job as an engineer. And so that's where the money comes into play, because I've probably said this in all of these webinars, the ones that I've specifically presented, or if I'm just saying stuff. But like the big thing here is understanding that like students, if students have to compete between having working 40 hours and making $35,000 a year versus getting a $15,000 scholarship, like the job is going to win. But if it's between working 20 hours and having a $15,000 scholarship that gets them a whole suite of mentoring, academic support, you know, uh, all different types of programs that they want to do, that they know how it's going to specifically impact their academic experience and their career down the road, then that's a much more difficult decision about whether or not to participate in the STEM program. And I think you have to make it obvious what they're going to get from it besides just the money, because there's other ways to get money. There's not other ways to get the type of academic and career support, social support that they can get from STEM. Does anyone else have any response? I know, Gabriel, you said you want to hear from some other PIs.
Did I? I,
You did.
I don't
Well,
want
you
to call
just
them out. I don't want to call folks out. I mean, of
no,
course,
no,
I
you didn't call
other
anybody out. You said you would
PIs.
like to hear,
I would love to hear. Yeah, some
love to hear from other
additional.
PIs. Not calling anybody out. So any other questions from the audience for any of us?
I have a quick question for Gabriel. You said that you got your research type experiences. So I'm Trisha Foley. I teach at a community college. Our program serves many different majors, and I think a lot like Jan's program, our students come in at all different levels. So you said that you got your research experience incorporated into classes, and I'm wondering, is it like many different classes? Is it one class? Are you serving only one field, or how? I just want a couple more details about that.
Yeah, and I don't know if our PI is. I think she was going to attend, so she can jump in as well. Kristen's here, but we serve kind of the broad STEM areas. So if you think about students who are pre-biology, chemistry, physics, engineering, um, And I know that we've been offering independent research, undergraduate research experiences, but we just presented a paper and a talk, I think at AACC about our undergraduate biology, our first year biology course, which we made that course a course-based undergrad. So we made that whole course kind of a cures course with this in mind. And I believe is Kristen, do you want to jump in here and see what else we've done on that? But I think that was a real aha moment for us to kind of build that scaffolding in. Um, I saw Elizabeth shaking her head. Is Kristen here?
Yep, I'm happy to jump in. We've been slowly over a series of years building in undergraduate research within our courses. And biology was really the first course that we tackled, and we were able to integrate a year-long research project into that course. And importantly, we held a student showcase where we had the students present their results. And I think that sparked interest across our other STEM departments. And I'll be very transparent. We had some other grants to help us with that work. And now we are slowly building in research projects within chemistry and engineering. And some of the projects look more like projects rather than research, but anything that is inquiry based, I think engages students more than that standard lab curriculum that sometimes we refer to as cookbook labs.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Kristen, because it goes back to the leveraging point, which I forgot to say at the beginning. We immediately realized when we started that we needed to not just leverage our institutional efforts, but leverage other grant funding. So we got an IU and an SF IU's grant. We've got some others because I just think it's really hard to do this programming on just, as Will said at the beginning, when you have 60% of your funding is going just for the scholarships, and then you have to do some research as well. I think they've changed it since then, but we were at the pinnacle of what they were asking us to do, which was kind of crazy. So I think it's been really helpful to get those accompanying. I almost want to be like, you really shouldn't get this grant unless you have some other grants to help you support doing what you're doing, because it makes it much more effective.
Do you have any advice for other colleges on how do you do that? I mean, having that sort of broader vision to bring these grants together, I'm sure there's some thinking that goes into and strategy to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I came out of faculty and then I was an instructional administrator, and now I'm a kind of planning institutional effectiveness. So I think it's the same thing that I would say for an institution in general. You should have a goal for what you want to do and what you want to accomplish, and go after funding to accomplish those goals. So for us, when we went after STEM, we wanted to get our students funding, but we had a whole list of kind of goals that we wanted our students to get, that had to do with our pathways work, and the original Achieving a Dream work. And so, I think it's good to have that plan of what you want to do. We'd been working really hard on our pre-college to college pathways and on contextualizing our math pathways. So it was really easy to kind of leverage those different opportunities into this work as well. So that's what I would say is, rather than grab a grant because it's a great opportunity for funding, really think about on a departmental level, on an area level, what is it that you really want to do to help your students be successful, and then go after those funding kind of on that way rather than like a piecemeal approach. It probably would have been easier if we would have gotten an NSF IU's grant first and then done SM, but we did it the way we did it. So it was a learning opportunity. And then we in Washington State, they have a College Spark program. So there are some other areas of funding that we got as well. Does that make sense, Michelle, what you're asking? Yeah. Looks like Jim had a question.
Jim.
Yeah, is it okay?
Yeah, go ahead. Mhm.
So I was curious if either of you or any of the others had explored opportunities. I think you talked about treating the STEM grant as kind of almost like a job, right? Like
Yeah.
employment.
Yeah.
And so as part of that employment, so a lot of responsibilities, but as part of that employment, has anybody used like a peer mentoring or learning assistant type program as a way to build on student sense of belonging and ownership in STEM, et cetera?
Yes, that's what some of the research to practice partner clinic that I did in April was about. Elizabeth, you have do you have an upcoming webinar on sense of belonging? But that's been part of the work that we've done, showing how the cohort models, and peer networking, peer mentoring factor into the sense of belonging. One anecdote from the research we did, like again here at USF with the community college transfers, is students said, when you come in as a transfer, like you kind of feel like you're the only one. Like you don't know where anybody else has been. You don't know, you think everybody else has been here forever and you're new. But by having the cohort model, by having peer mentoring set up, they come in, they immediately know, oh, okay, all of these other people are in the same boat that I'm in. So right there, there's a shared sense of community. There is that sense of belonging, but there's also a shared sense of struggle. And so when students have, difficult times, oh, there it is. It was on Friday. It was when they have, difficult times, when there's challenges happen, which, happen to everybody, they know that they're not facing that because they're somehow inadequate. They know that other students are facing it too. And I remember one of the students specifically said, I'm facing these challenges, and I know my cohort mates are facing these challenges. And it's if people who are as smart and talented as them are being challenged, then that means I'm not alone. This is just something that we're all going through. And so that sense of shared struggle is part of that sense of belonging as well.
I wanted to respond to that too, if I could. So I'm at a 4-year, one of those ones where we named our partners in our STEM grant. So that's where I'm coming from, but I'm on the 4-year side. We assign a peer mentor from our 4-year institution when we accept them into the program at the community college. So they have a peer mentor that at the 4-year school that they're intending to transfer to talk to while they're still at the community college. Ideally, that person is still on campus when the student transfers over. But students just when they get the most useful, they graduate. So that we haven't been able to do as consistently as we hoped and as we wrote about in the grant. The other thing you were talking about shared challenges, and over the years we've been revising. We have an orientation just for our STEM scholars who've just transferred in, and we've been revising it. And one of the things that we added was that you're coming here to take junior level courses. And our native students find a big transition between sophomore level courses and junior level courses. Junior level courses, you expect to be more independent. It's more in depth. Everybody in there is in your major by the time you're at the junior level. And so we say, you're going to find we won't be surprised if you find these classes harder. It's not because you don't have the right preparation. It's because you're making another step up. And so are your classmates who've been here for 2 years already. They're also making a step up. So, and we found that helpful uh, to tell them that right up front before they even took their first class.
Well, this has been a really great conversation and a lot of really rich insights. And I guess we are actually at time now, as much as it would be fun to continue discussing, but I hope that folks will join us for our future CCSN webinars, which we'll be announcing soon. And I want to just thank everybody again today for presenting, sharing, and taking part in this discussion. And I wish you all a great rest of the day. Thank you.